Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock, founder and president of Giant Jacks Media. Thanks for jumping on Giant TV. And this is where I get to talk to a lot of incredible entrepreneurs like Glen, who's with us right now. Can you hear me okay?
You're fine.
Really fired up to have Glen here. And, Glen, I don't even know how to introduce you. The struggle is you have done so many things, and I just want to start, from the beginning, because I know you've done some entrepreneurial things, and I want to get to what you're doing now with your app, which is incredible. You and I have had a chance to chat before, but how did you get started in business? Take me back to that time.
Well, first let's say that when I started, I was a horrible student. I mean, I'm going to steal a line from Daniel Pink, but at University of Maryland, I was the part of the class that made the top 80% possible. Uh, so it was very difficult for me to get a job. And I was interested in computers. I knew I was a salesperson initially.
But I got to ask you, but bad student because you weren't interested in the stuff, or you were partying too hard, or what was it?
So I didn't really realize it, and I'll tell you how I came to the realization of what was going on. And I had very low self-worth as well. And so I didn't think I'd get into I thought sales was the only occupation for me.
Right.
And I went to IBM. They were only hiring B+ students, and Burroughs and Xerox, all the people with regular programs, and with good sales training programs. And my parents told me that I'd have to move back to New Jersey. I went to University of Maryland. I was living in the DC area. If I didn't get a job soon, which to me was like death. So I wasn't moving back home. So I went to a company called Lexitron. Lexitron was the first word processor with a screen. It was the precursor to the PC.
Oh, okay.
Great company, got bought by Raytheon. I went to Lexitron, and they told me, well, we only hire people from Xerox and from IBM and people who've been, because we don't have a training program. So all our guys, and I wouldn't leave the office. I just said, look, I will work here for free. I will carry the bags of your sales guys to learn this business. And they hired me.
Wow.
And the first year I made my number. That was
as a sales guy. They hired you as a sales guy.
Yeah, they hired me as a sales guy, paid me a little. And the first year I made my number, I went on a nice club trip. The next year, I out of the 200 sales guys, I was in the top 10%. I made, in 1979, I made $88,000. And then next year I was the top 5, and I made $103,000 in 1981.
A lot of money. Yeah.
So, and that was good money. You could buy a pretty good meal for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things I learned about myself was that if I couldn't connect the dots of where will this take me tomorrow, I wasn't really interested or motivated to do it. But at Lexitron, where I enjoyed computers, could see what they would do for me, I realized I had really serious ADD, and that unless I could connect the dots, I could not concentrate to the point where I could excel. But at Lexitron, we had written a special program, which was one of the first microprocessor-based database programs to win a contract with the Navy, and we lost it. And we had no training or anything, but I started selling that instead of just word processing, which that's the year I made $103,000. I sold like $230,000 worth of that to the Navy. They didn't use it as a word processor. They used it as a personnel management system. And I had to write the program that managed personnel. And I developed my own training. So I realized I wasn't dumb.
Right.
If I applied myself and if I was interested, I could do things.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you mentioned the ADD thing. That's interesting because it wasn't diagnosed back then as it was today. There's a lot more awareness about it. So was it officially diagnosed for you back then, or you just?
No, it wasn't. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize I had it until I realized my son had it and started saying, what's going on with this kid? And when I got him diagnosed, I said, hey, let me get myself diagnosed. So I didn't know I had it until I was 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't really understand it. But I did know that I started excelling in business. I was not dumb. I just wasn't motivated in applying myself.
Right. Right.
And so from Lexitron, I moved into management quickly. I had a $20 million branch. I ran the civilian branch in Washington, D.C., had people who were much older than me. This is my fourth year out of school. I was managing 40-year-olds and whatever. And, we were doing well. And
Yeah.
that's sort of how I got into the business. Always involved in startups. Lexitron got bought by Raytheon. Always involved in startups. Always enjoyed startups. Spent some time in sales management, national sales operations, running quotas, helping people open offices, marketing, and things like that. And then I started my first company. I was working for a company called Progress Software. We went public. Progress is still around. It was a pretty good public offering. I was an early employee, made enough money to sort of play around.
Always in the DC area, because you're in DC now. Always there.
Well, yeah, I've had some off. I've always lived in the DC area, but Progress, I ran the East Coast for them, so everything east from Chicago east, and the eastern part of the country. And I had a $60 million budget and
big number,
a lot of sales folks, and we were very successful. We went public, and from that, I invested some of the money I made on the public offering on a company called SalesSoft, which was one of the first CRM systems. And one of my customers at Progress had started the company. He was the president of a company that went public. He was a customer of mine. I invested, became the salesperson there, invested in that. We raised money. We raised about $6 million. We failed miserably. Which, that's a lot of reasons, and I had some of the blame. I'll take some of the blame. A lot of reasons why we failed. But from that, I went to another company and started consulting with them on how they could take their consulting company. This is when the World Wide Web became a thing.
Right.
And decided, and everybody was going public, and they wanted to take part in this whole. And so I helped them. They had developed a bunch of different products for a bunch of different customers. I helped them productize one of them, and we raised $6 million off of that. We changed the company name from CCI, which stood for nothing, to what was it? Geez, I forgot what the name was, but we changed the name.
Came up with a better name. That was more
we used those initials, kept the name, and we raised $6 million, and then 4 years later, we sold it for $100 million cash to 3Com.
Woo! Wow!
And so it was another great experience.
And probably learned from the failure. I can only imagine learned a lot from that. That probably helped you in the successes that you've had since then.
Yeah, you learn more from your failures than your success. I'm a big believer that one of the worst things that can happen to a person is they have success at the first time, and they attribute success to brilliance and don't put enough credit into luck. It's luck and timing. You're smart, you increase the odds, but you don't increase them much. You work hard, and you get to roll the dice more times. But the odds are always stacked against you. I mean, if a VC invests in your company, the odds say that only 20% of those companies are going to make money for the VC.
Interesting, yeah.
So you got a 1 in 5 chance. If you haven't raised money, you got less than a 1 in 5 chance.
Right,
if you're a startup.
Yeah.
So, when we sold the company, 3Com hired me to run a division of 3Com. I did it for a year. I hated working for a large company. I loved my boss. He and I are still buddies.
Right.
He was the guy who wrote the check and made me a lot of money. So I actually quit without a job, and 9/11 happened, and it was unfortunate. And I started looking for work, and one of the venture capitalists who was in computer consoles, CCI, said to me, Glenn, I have a company that's very similar. It's in Denver. Would you like to run it? It's in trouble. And so I started commuting to Denver, and I ran a company called
Wow.
Astracon.
Wow. You went as kind of a fixer of the company
Yeah,
in some
yeah,
sort? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I didn't replace the founder. The founder was it was an interesting company. Half our developers were in Australia, in Brisbane, Australia, and our sales and marketing was in Denver.
Wow.
Uh, so I replaced the CEO. He became the CTO. He was a college professor out of the University of Queensland, and he moved over to CTO. And I reduced. The first thing I had to do when I got there actually was take us down from 300 plus people to 80,
Ooh. Ooh. Never,
which
never easy.
well, the first day was really easy because I was able to go from 380 to 379 because I fired our masseuse.
A masseuse. Yeah,
True
a
story.
masseuse.
True story.
Oh Lord, that tells that paints a picture of some of
Yeah.
the issues. Yeah.
So, but I gave it 90 days. I let people know that not all of us would be here. I was honest. I was frank with them. And I let a lot of people go who, couldn't feed their families, who had played no part in the failure of the company or the reason they were out of the job.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so that started me on the role of becoming a turnaround guy. So we returned $2 million to the investors. It was not a win, but we stopped the burn. One of those investors put me into another company, and I started about a 10-year stint as a turnaround guy working on turnarounds.
Wow. So it just kind of rolled on from there.
Right. And what I'd say is I realized I was in hospice care. Most of the companies I had were dead and dying, and the object was to harvest whatever organs were of value
Mm-hmm.
and stop the burn, harvest the organs, see what kind of cash you can get out of it. And I did that for 10 years, and it sucked my soul. I laid off so many people. I thought, I went into it thinking this is really cool. I'm a big guy. I'm a buzzsaw, and this is great stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of sucked my soul. And so I closed down my last company, which was an intelligent parking meter company, and I closed it down.
Huh.
It had a sonar detector on it. And it could tell if your car was there, and it could contact the meter people and say, "Hey, car here. It's been the guy never paid," or "Car here. It's been 10 minutes over."
Oh, so this is a smart meter where you pay right there with your card.
It was
like
it was the olden days. It was coins, but
Oh,
it was
coins.
smart.
Oh,
It knew your
coins.
car was there. And as a matter of fact, we would encourage people to give you 15 minutes free. As soon as your car pulls up, give you 15 minutes free.
Yeah.
Because parking is not about making money. It's about changing behavior that's best for the business district. And people who come in and go and shop and spend money and leave, that's good for the business.
Right.
So
You want turnover and stuff
you
going
want
on.
churn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when your car left, we'd zero out the meter, which generated about 40% more revenue. So
Oh,
when
instead
you
of
push,
instead of being able to grab onto somebody else's leftover time.
right, but it had one problem. It was only 93% accurate, and oftentimes we'd lose a car. So in LA, where we had a trial, where you have 20,000 meters and figure 8 parking operations a day on 20,000 meters, and 6% of the time people were getting tickets for things they didn't do.
Oh,
That's not a good business model.
no.
So we couldn't improve it. We couldn't make it work. We closed it down. And from that, what I wound up doing is I joined an organization called Vistage. I became a executive coach, taking the lessons that I had learned, and I would compare that to going from hospice care to wellness care. My whole job was to make sure these guys didn't put their companies into hospice care or ever need a guy like me again to replace them.
Yeah, I love Vistage. Know Vistage well. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And I did that. I not with Vistage, because I left Vistage and did it on my own, hung up my own shingle. And I did that for 10 years.
Yeah.
I was a blogger, which is how I got my business. So I was a heavily read blogger in the Washington, D.C. area. mostly spending time sort of taking apart bad business models, bad business practices, looking at examples in the region. And in fact, there are two guys in prison who I worked with the FBI on and putting in prison. Uh,
Wow.
and,
Like
and
white collar criminal guys doing stuff.
in both cases, they raised money and used it personally. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
one of them was high, like if you look up the word Trustify, that was a company that I sort of worked with the FBI to bring down.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Can't be
I
doing
would
that.
write about it. I saw that the business model didn't make sense. I saw that the guy was a scammer. Started writing about it, and leads. People would come and give me leads and tell me, "Hey, you don't even know the half of it." And I started passing those people up. The FBI contacted me, said, "Hey, we're reading your stuff. It's interesting. How can you help us?" And so when people would call me with a lead, I'd say, "Hey, would you like to talk to the FBI about it?" And if they said
Wow.
yes, I would pass them on to the FBI.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so that guy got 8 years. Another one got 12. Uh, and, it was just sniffing out bad business practices.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like Geraldo Rivera of the blogging
No,
history
no, don't say
there.
that. That's not, to me, that's, but one of my coaching clients was a guy named Raj Basker. And that's who I work with now. So Raj had created this thing called Hurdler.
Hurdler, right? Yeah.
And as a self-employed freelancer, business coach, while I loved coaching and I loved, working with my clients, one of the things I hated was managing my expenses, managing my, finances,
Wow.
filing self-employment
Right.
taxes. Even though I had a bookkeeper, it was a lot of work for me.
Yeah.
And Raj had built a program that keeps track of your mileage, ties into your credit cards, ties into your bank account, tracks your income, has AI, so it pretty much characterizes it very accurately. And from that, can give me a good P&L statement. I know what I'm making money on, losing money on,
Yeah.
and also did my quarterly tax filing and regular tax filings.
Yeah, yeah. You and I've had a chance to talk before about it. Fascinating app. And yeah, and you guys are taking off now, and you're taking this to enterprise companies, right? Tell me what you're doing with it.
So if you think about the gig economy, which is growing, in the world of corporate America, you have the Great Resignation. People are leaving corporate America left and right, employees. And one of the things that attracts them is this whole gig economy. There are a lot of things that a good programmer can do that they don't have to do working for a large company.
Yeah.
They can manage their own time. So they might go to a freelance.com or some website and have those people find jobs for them. We sell to the marketplace vendors, the banks that service those people, and allow them to private label our functionality. And what it does is it creates a level of loyalty with these people.
Mm-hmm.
It gets rid of some of the frustration because they have to do less bookkeeping. They're not frustrated with that. Keeps them gigging more, earning money more, sharing profits with the marketplaces more, and creates loyalty. So that's what we're now selling to the businesses that help gig workers either offer benefits or, there's a whole insurance industry around selling insurance to gig workers.
Right.
That's a benefit. So we're now in the benefit market for the freelance and gig economy.
It's a fascinating model, and but Glenn, you can also you can download this as an app, right, on your phone. Anybody can.
Yep, it's free to track mileage, although it's manual if you track mileage. So if you pay for the premium, which is $9 a month, it has an AI, so it kind of knows your trip. So if you're a realtor, for instance,
yeah,
it kind of knows that you're driving for business. It knows if you're a Uber driver or you're part of the gig economy and you're doing deliveries for Walmart. It knows this Walmart trip was probably personal. This Walmart trip was business. So it categorizes it, captures their mileage automatically, transfers that into their P&L. It ties into your credit cards, your bank statements. So
Unreal.
when a credit card comes in for diapers, it knows that's probably not business. When a credit card thing comes in for gasoline or a car wash, and you're an Uber driver, it knows, okay, that's a business expense. So that's how it automatically categorizes your and sets your expense. We have another version that allows you to do invoicing, which higher end. So if you're doing invoicing, not getting paid by a gig economy company, you'd use the higher end version.
It's unbelievable. It never ceases to amaze me, the technology. So where are you going with this company, Glenn? Like where next 5 years, what's happening?
So, you never want to build a company for sale. What you want to do is build a big company. And the way you build it big is taking care of customers, doing the right things, being part of a big ecosystem, picking the right market, and just keep doing the right things. But realistically, I don't see how this thing is a standalone thing for the next 5 years. Somebody's going to buy it.
Somebody's going to snap it up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
who would buy
becoming too, well, it'll probably be, and I can't talk about who are.
No, but what type of company would buy it?
It could be an Amazon. It could be an Uber. It could be a bank. We have a bank that is an investor, a large bank that's an investor. Could be a bank. So the attractiveness for a bank is that you want to get the bank if the economy is transitioning and the growth of the gig economy, corporate clients. Look, GE announced today there's going to be 3 GEs.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right?
Yeah.
Companies are getting smaller, not bigger, and employee bases are getting smaller. So, the banking business is heavily interested in the gig economy.
Right.
And we're a good way of getting entree to that gig economy.
It's such a great story. And, looking at your history here, you've done so many things, including being a hockey coach, which I'll ask about next time in your history there. But very interesting. I could keep talking forever. I've got to ask you this because I always get a chuckle out of this because when you booked this interview, one of the questions we ask is, okay, if you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? And you mentioned coffee and then a really good steak. So, but it wasn't just a steak. It was a very specific type of steak. What was the steak that you put on there?
Okay. So, first of all, let me tell you something about coffee. One of the reasons I realized I had ADD was I'm addicted to coffee. And I went through a 5-day cold turkey where I had terrible stomach. This is, again, I was 40, so it's years ago. I went through terrible stomach nausea, headaches for 5 days to break it. And what I realized then was, oh my God, I was self-medicating the caffeine because stimulants, Ritalin is a stimulant.
Right. Yeah.
So I went to a doctor and the doctor said, Glenn, yeah, you have ADD. And I forgot, I think Adderall. He put me on Adderall.
Right. Yeah.
Kept me up at night. It's a controlled substance. You can only get 30 of them a day. I had to go visit the doctor to get it. I said, you know what? I think I was doing better on coffee. So I stopped going to the doctor. I went back to coffee.
Now, are you drinking? Are there
every day? A pot a day.
Oh my Lord, a pot. And is it? Do you grind your own beans?
I grind it fresh. Yeah.
Fresh. And where is it? Where are the beans from? Are you particular about
that? The beans are from. These beans are not special beans. It's the roaster who's special. It's a Cuban style bean. It's the roasters in Maryland. Actually, in our office, we do pour over coffee, which is really shishi. So we grind the beans and then we pour over cup by cup. To me, it's too much work. I need a lot more coffee. So, but you see, I even make the coffee into a pot, into a thermos. It gets made into a thermos so it doesn't cook, but it stays warm.
Oh, that's hilarious! And the steak that goes along with it is
the steak is so New York strips, strip loin. I like prime New York strips, which I can get at Costco or at
Right.
the Palm or at the Prime Rib or and I like it Pittsburgh style rare, which is sort of
What is that?
charred. So it's Pittsburgh style is charred, which keeps the juices in you. Charred in the beginning, so it's charred, but it's still rare inside, and that's
Oh,
a
man.
Pittsburgh style New York strip steak.
Love it. Love it.
And you can
Love it.
get, it's charred rare, and that's my steak. And I'll have one at least once a week. My wife is not a fan of me eating steaks. She
Yeah.
wants me to live longer, and I would rather, not only would I live longer, it would feel like I was living longer. So, I'm a big believer in if you're not living, why live longer?
Exactly. Well, Glen Hellman, really great to have you here. And everybody that's listening, you got to follow Glen Hellman wherever you're watching this, because we stream this everywhere. This goes out in blogs, YouTube, LinkedIn. Glen will be connected here, so follow Glen. He's a great guy to know. Look into Hurdler, fascinating service.
HURDLR.
D as in dog, Hurdler.
Yes, hurdler. No, like a hurdler without the E between the L and the R.
Love it. Glen, thanks so much. I know you and I are going to keep talking, so really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.